Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Wade Bradford, and one of the things I love to do is talk about writing. I spend a lot of time talking about how to write stories, how to write plays, how to write children's books, and how to write novels. Today I'm talking about, it could be any of those things, because I'm talking about writing the second draft. So, no matter what you've been working on, you hopefully got to the point where you wrote the words "the end." But of course, as you probably already know, that's not the end. So in my handy dandy notebook, I have written down 5 strategies for writing an awesome second draft. So here we go. Cool your jets. What I mean by this is that if you have been passionately, fervently writing your first draft and of your novel or your play or your short story, whatever it is, and you feel like, hey, I wrote my first draft today, I wrote the end, and now I just want to, tomorrow or maybe later on today, I'm going to start doing the second draft. I don't recommend that. I recommend that you put it away, that you cool your jets. Now, for some people, cool your jets means that you don't look at your manuscript for 1 or 2 months or maybe even 6 months go by. I don't think that, you necessarily need to wait that long. You just need to wait until you can approach the first draft with a different set of eyes or a different mindset. When you're able to look at the manuscript with that different mindset, hopefully the sensation you will have is like, oh wow, I know I wrote this, but it almost feels like somebody else wrote this. And that's the place that you want to be. So you are now emotionally detached from the writing at least a little bit, and that's a good time to begin. So I recommend that you give yourself, if it's a shorter work, give yourself at least 3 days to cool your jets. And if it's a longer work, give yourself at least a week, maybe 2 weeks. While you cool your jets, you should read comparable works. So read chapters, read scenes from plays, read whatever it is that you're working on. Say you were making a romance novel, then go to your local library or go to your bookshelf or go online and read books that are similar. Preferably, you are actually reading books that you've already read before, because I don't really want you to. I'm talking about sample chapters and sample scenes, just random pages. I don't want you to read a whole bunch of books from start to finish to do this. I want you to get an appreciation of the voice, of sentence structure, of the emotional impact of some of the scenes, and I want you to get a sampling of how these sample works, how they begin, but what's going on in the middle, what happens in the climactic moment, what happens in the resolution. So what I do when I'm writing a fantasy novel is I look at about 5 different books. Some of them are my favorites, and some of them are classics. Some of them are a lot more obscure. So it's kind of an eclectic mix. But the connecting factor is that I respect all of these writers. Now the reason why we're even bothering doing this, and we're doing this while we are cooling our jets, is so that we can really think about the voices that we admire and how our voice can have some similarity, but more important, key differences. We want to develop our own voice. All right, strategy number 3. So we've cooled our jets, we've sampled other voices, other writers. Now we're ready to revise. So my strategy is revise in a non-linear fashion. What I mean by that is don't feel the need, in fact resist the urge, to start on page 1 and go through the entire draft. This advice might not work for everybody, and if it doesn't work for you or doesn't interest you, don't try it. A lot of times, if we start on page 1 of our revision and go through, what's going to happen is that we will become so fixated on making chapter 1, perfect, that all of our energy goes into that opening chapter, and not as much energy goes into other aspects of the book. Obviously, chapter 1 needs to be sensational because you want people to read beyond the first page. But I'll tell you this, a good way to ruin your first chapter is to revise it over and over and over and over again, which you don't want to do. So instead, when I say a non-linear revision approach, you've written the first draft, you already know what scenes work and what scenes don't, right? You're going to find out more. You might be surprised, like, oh, I thought this worked and it didn't, or wow, this worked out better than I can. But you already know. It's like, wow, that climactic moment just doesn't work, or that middle part gets boring, right? So go to the places that need repair. If you were going to remodel a house, you wouldn't just necessarily start on the front step. If the front step was fine, you'd go to the parts of the house that need the most help. So go to the parts of the story that need the most repair. Tip number 4, a little backstory for this one. There's this book that was called The Magical Art of Tidying Up, Marie Kondo. I'm not even getting the name right because I don't like remembering this, but I had heard about this book, and I was walking around the bookstore and I pointed it out to my wife, said like, oh, people are going nuts over this book. And she's like, I want to go nuts over this book. And then she took the book and she bought the book. And for the next 6 months, we were going through all the stuff on our house saying, does this bring you joy? If not, throw it out. Does this bring you joy? You know, so we did all this tidying up for 6 months. I should have never talked about that book. I should have never pointed it out. So that was painful for me as a lazy husband. However, the Marie Kondo technique is something that can be useful for strategy number 4. You can look at your story and you can ask this question. Not does it bring you joy, but does it serve your story? So look at any part of the manuscript that you're working on and ask yourself, is this serving the story? Now, sometimes that's about plot. It's like, oh, okay, well, is this furthering the plot? You know, do we need to have this scene for everything else to work? That's very important. But also, there are moments where it's like, oh, well, we learn more about the character in this way. And there's also moments where it's like, wow, this is a really fun scene. This is a really, amusing moment, a really intense moment. So some people would say, like, every moment has to serve the plot. Maybe, but I think every moment has to serve the story, and maybe that's plot, maybe that's character, maybe it's a little bit of theme, maybe it's this emotional impact moment. So ask yourself that question: is this scene, is this page, is this paragraph serving the story? And if it's not, then remove it. Now, when I say remove it, you might not want to just delete it forever. You, again, make sure that when you're doing the drafts of your work that you have your first draft intact and that you aren't erasing things entirely, because you might have reviser's remorse. So make sure that as you're working on the second draft that you're not just permanently deleting things. And strategy number 5, when in doubt, read out loud. If you're not sure if the dialogue shines, then read it out loud. If you're wondering if you're being too verbose, read it out loud. You're wondering if something makes sense, your world building or the description of a location, read it out loud. I don't know that you need to read your entire novel out loud, but for me, hearing my own words out loud helps greatly with the revision process. Listening to the words really helps to know whether or not this is the right voice I'm creating. So those are my 5 strategies, and I am working on a second draft very soon. Yesterday I finished the first draft of a project that I had been working on for a while, so I'm going to try to follow my own advice, and I'm putting it away for about a week, and then I'm going to come back to it, and I'm going to be doing all of the things that I've mentioned. So I'll make a follow-up video letting you know how these strategies worked for me for my most recent draft. But these strategies have definitely worked for me for the children's books I write and for the plays that I've created, and hopefully they will work for you. All right, that's all the advice I have to give for now. I do want to say a quick shout out to Donna Munt. She encouraged me to make this video because she is working on a second draft. So Donna, thank you very much for the suggestion, and I hope my advice serves you well. If you have any suggestions of what you would like to see on this channel, please leave a comment, and I hope that you will join my channel and like and subscribe and things like that. But even more than that, I'm hoping that you'll become a part of this YouTube community. Just leave a comment and we'll start, connecting. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.